everybody, and thank you for tuning in for yet another week of Showtime with Jordan Van Hassel and Friends here on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Today, I have another friend, a new friend, who's actually kind of been circling around my radar for a long time. Our good friend Chris, who connected us, has mentioned you a bunch of times, and since we have started chatting, I see on Facebook that we know a lot of the same people, both in Los Angeles and in New York. So we're going to call him an old friend, an old new friend, the talented actor Todd Sherry. Thank you so much for being with us, Todd.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And it's so funny also because, like I said, you've kind of been on my radar for a while, and I've seen you and I'm like, well, he looks really familiar. Maybe we've been in the same parties, but then I started to really kind of like invest in preparation for our conversation, investigate, and I said, oh, he looks familiar because he's literally been on every movie and film project and TV project that's ever come out of the studio system. I want to get into that, but first, how have you been spending your spring break?
Is that what you're calling
it? That's what I'm calling it. If Martha Stewart can call it Yale, I'm calling this spring break.
Spring break. Well, unfortunately, the first 30 days of it, I was sick with COVID-19. So
Yowza.
I was down.
Yowza. So now, was that like before like everyone was really like everything shut down and everyone was really serious about it, or did you kind of get it when everyone was, oh, it's just the flu, oh, it's just the
No, it was March 16th was the first day with the symptom, and so it was right, when we knew it was happening, and I was suspicious, so I have on my property, I have a house, and then I have a little like an office building, and I went back there. There's a twin bed in there, and I went back there because I have a roommate, and I was like, I'm feeling weird. I'm gonna go back there and isolate. And sure enough, I came in the next day. I had a fever. 17 out of 18 days that I was really sick.
Oh my God.
And then there were 2 more weeks of just, I ended up at the doctor's office. I don't know if you know how rare that is now that the doctor actually has you in the office. But she wanted to see me because she was worried that I might have had a secondary infection, pneumonia or something, because it just lingered so long. But that's what's happening. It's hitting some people really, really hard, and others are asymptomatic. What's so scary about people just going out and especially these protesters with no masks, they could have it, be spreading it around left and right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Did your roommate end up coming down with it as well?
No, but she tested for the virus. Later had the antibody test and tested positive for the antibodies.
Oh, wow.
So she had it, but not from me, probably.
Right. So she probably gave it to you.
Who knows? No, actually, it was Palm Springs, where I know that you are headed. But I was in Palm Springs from March 4th to the 14th for a friend's birthday event.
Oh, hold on one second. You're kind of breaking up. I don't know if that's my connection or yours.
How am I now?
You're good. Okay, there you go. Say that again. So you were going down to Palm Springs.
I was in Palm Springs. People were getting there were a lot of friends all over the country, many from New York who work on Broadway, and they all got the text at the same time that Broadway was shut down. And so we stood there and watched 8 of our friends lose their jobs. And we're like, oh my God, this is happening. And everybody was worried about getting back to New York. At that time, nobody knew we're going to shut down New York or what was going to happen. So many people lost their flights and back. Anyway, long story short, about 30 of us there at various events for this. And 3 of us tested positive for COVID-19 once coming home. I mean, I was sick. It's another woman who was there about it. And my boyfriend, he only had half down for the count.
Yowzer. 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 That's so crazy. That's so nuts. Speaking of Palm Springs, I got I got an email. They threw White Party as a virtual party, and I just envisioned
Really?
on Facebook Live, and I just envisioned a bunch of people dancing around their living rooms in their underwear on whatever.
That
But I'm glad.
sounds
But I'm
fun.
right. But I'm glad you're feeling better now.
Yes, thank
So how have you
you.
been keeping now that you're now that you're better? Because I imagine you were like totally down for the count. Like one of the things that I've found um, that has been at least like a daily positive to being trapped in the house is that like, oh, you know what? I can get like a lot of stuff done and I can kind of be creative and I can do things and work on projects. I imagine while you were sick, you were like sick. Now that you're feeling better, how are you occupying your time?
Well, this is the third interview I've had. Interview. I have a huge garden, a 5,000 square foot garden that I tend myself, so that keeps me busy. There have been some times of boredom. There have been times of a lot of binge watching television. Um, that's about it. I mean, there's not that much to do. I wish I would be more inspired to, maybe do a spring cleaning or something like that.
You're like, but no.
But now I
Yeah,
finally have to clean out the garage and I'm not doing it. So I know that I'm lazy now.
right. Well, I think that that's going to be the biggest thing because everyone's like, we want to get back to work. We want to get back to work. And I kind of am wondering if that moment they're like, all right, you can go back to work. You say, wait, what? I have to, I have to do what?
I get up before 10. What?
Dress yourself, you know.
Or Dave? No.
But speaking of going back to work, I know that like, all the studios are kind of trying to figure out how to do that. And as I mentioned before, you've literally been in every freaking television show that's ever that's ever been produced. Tell me about like just your career and how where you started and all of that jazz.
I went
You were
to
born
college and
and
got a
then what
BS
happened?
in, yes, I was born uh, in a small town in Pennsylvania. I went to college for acting. I got a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in acting, and then I just sort of listened to everybody who said you should do theater, and went to New York after
Hmm.
graduation. Even though my lifelong dream had always been to be on television, um, but I love theater too. I love doing it, but just it wasn't where my dream was. But I felt like my dream was unattainable, or just coming from where I came from and having no connections whatsoever in that business. So I went to New York, which I regret. I 20s in New York City and had a great time. But then in '96, I went around the world on a cruise ship singing, and it ended in Los Angeles. And at the time that I left New York, I put my stuff in storage. I didn't want to pay rent while I was gone and all that. So uh, I was free. I had a friend who had moved out here, and she said, "Hey, why don't you check it out and see if you want to stay out here?" So I stayed with her for a little while, and she said, "Stay with me for like 2 or 3 months," and I stayed 3 weeks, and I was like, "Yes, I'm coming back." Yes, and yes, this weather is amazing. So yeah, my God, no humidity, no bugs, no nothing. Um, so that's what brought me out here, and then it took a little while to get in the game, but I persisted, and uh, then once I started working in TV, it was pretty regular, throwing me off now because that's how I make my living.
Yeah, totally. Although I imagine, like, how do you feel about having? Because I started out in New York. I haven't been in Los Angeles nearly for as long as you have. I moved to Los Angeles um, to take a job with Sony maybe 6 years ago or so. And one of the things, because LA, the culture in LA is very very specific, and how people interact with each other very very specific. And I really am happy that I spent like my growing up years in New York before going to LA, because I think I would be like a totally different human being if I had come to New York, I'd come to LA at like 19. You know?
Yeah, I feel like I'm dead if I did that. If I,
Exactly. Well, before everything shut down, what was the last thing you were working on?
The Resident. I did the title character on the episode of The Resident, about a Dolly Parton impersonator who collapses on stage. I was the medical storyline of the episode. It's a medical drama. And got to go to Atlanta and do that, which was fantastic.
Yeah. What do you think of it? I don't know if you saw it in Deadline. Speaking of Atlanta, well, no, I was thinking now about that. Talking about Atlanta made me think about. There was an article in Deadline maybe yesterday or the day before, and it was kind of Tyler Perry's idea of how to reopen the studios, because he wants to reopen like immediately. I don't know if you read that at all.
I didn't see that one, but I'm gonna look for it because there's a number of them going around from different people.
Yeah, well, his whole idea, because his whole campus is truly like a campus, and like the back lot are all like actual functioning buildings. His whole idea is to figure out what you're going to produce, bring everyone out, test them, and then sequester them throughout production on the lot, and then keep moving that way. And I thought it was rather interesting, but my biggest takeaway was that they said that he shoots 22 episodes in like 2.5 weeks, and I don't know how that's like remotely possible.
That does not sound possible. Normally it's one episode every 5 days, and for a 1 hour show, it's one episode every 8 days, which still doesn't feel like enough sometimes for a 1 hour show. But I do know that he does a even shorter schedule, but I don't think you can do more than 2 shows.
The only thing I can imagine is if they're just doing it. The only thing, because like I come out of soaps, and like the soaps move really quickly, right? Doing like an hour a day. And I think in Days of Our Lives now does even more than an hour a day. The only thing I can imagine he does is just do everything live to tape and no retakes, and it's just okay. We're gonna shoot like 6 episodes of this. That's the only way I can imagine it.
Hell for me as an actor, but I mean, I've often been on sets and thought, it doesn't need to take this long. What's going on? Like a 1 hour show or a film where, in a multi-camera comedy, it's much faster because you're getting all 3 shots at the same time.
Right.
There's changing the lights and all that business. And I know that stuff has to be done, but there's also times where I'm like, there's no reason this should take this long. So, I mean, he obviously has proven it. And, back in the day, Roger Corman, the great film director, he would make things, in a week or 2 weeks. He'd make a movie, and it's film and get it done. So, it's possible to do the best of the best of the best quality. Probably not, but it can. And now that's very interesting. I want to look up that article because that seems like one of the only viable ways to do it is to, this campus situation where you can be sequestered away. Here they were talking about a filmmaker who's been getting input and put out an article saying that they would sort of his method would be to sort of take over a hotel, and anybody that was going to be in the series would have to be quarantined for 14 days. Then if everybody's okay and you work on the series and you're sort of kept together in these 4 pods, like the actors and that are separate from the crew, and they're separate from, there's 4 different factions, he's saying, and that they would clean, sterilize and clean the areas, daily. People only come together for certain, for shots or whatever, but shots, not
Right.
shots.
Right. Well.
Or, uh, and it sounded unmanageable to me. They were saying also that they would have to cut out having any one-day players or background actors because how could you bring all the people on, you know,
Yeah.
infect somebody with something?
Yeah.
Sounds like, a lot of more people out of work.
Basically, I think it's gonna be really interesting, and it's even gonna be interesting just to see how, because I was even thinking about this like early on, like when we started social distancing and closing down. I thought, wow, a year from now, it's gonna look really weird to watch television programs that aren't remotely like acknowledging how we now live, walking down the street with no masks or anything. So I think it'll be interesting to see if I mean, I know like projects are still being sold like now, but it'll be interesting to see if that new model is going to just kind of if writing is going to start kind of incorporating that model into the stories in terms of how the stories are told, how many cast members are in a show or in a particular scene, is everything. So it'll just be really interesting because it's so unknown and it's so bizarre because like I think about you think about a couple things like when 9/11 happened, everything stopped for a second. But as we reopened, like we didn't necessarily, I mean, unless you're flying, we didn't really necessarily change how we interacted with each other. And so it'll be really interesting just to see just what happens as we come out of this. Well, I think I lost your volume. Hold on one second. Can't hear you. Is your mic on? I can't hear. I can't hear you. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. I can't hear you now. You know what I can do? Maybe I should try to call you back.
Well, maybe.
Oh, now I can hear you.
Oh,
there you go. So what were you saying?
I'm
sorry.
Get her voice. I was gonna say that.
And I lost you again.
Oh.
Now it's so interesting. It's almost like you're in a little wind tunnel.
I was just saying to somebody the other day that I find myself watching shows, that are already on, things that are on already now, and of course they were filmed before this,
Mm-hmm.
and I find myself looking at them and freaking out that people are so close or are touching or are, and then I'm like, oh wait, this was before. You know what I mean? Like I'm literally watching the screen and thinking, why are those people so close? Why aren't they wearing masks? And it's already like affected my mind. I have to sort of come back to reality and say, oh no, this is it's a TV show and it's not reality, and it's before this all happened. That Australian soap Neighbours is
Mm-hmm.
going back into production, and they say they're going to have all kinds of safeties, and they're going to do camera tricks to make characters look like they're closer than they are together, but there will be no actual touching and I'm like, a soap opera with no touching,
right? Like it's like
it's gonna be weird. I mean, they're gonna have to write differently. They're gonna have to
well, also because like you said, people who are watching, viewers are going to be conscious of it, like, oh my god, why is he just like touching some random person in the restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. I think there's probably going to be a lot less group scenes, crowd scenes. They're going to be like, okay, let's not set this in a restaurant. Let's set this inside the car, and they talk in the car. Whatever. But they'll just. I think they're going to be doing that. They're going to be changing how they write locations and such, so that they don't have to have a bunch of background people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll be. I'm curious to see. I don't know if you saw Netflix just bought. Oh my God, I can't think of her name. The woman who created Orange Is the New Black.
Mm-hmm.
But they just brought a new series, a new anthology series from her called, I think it's called Self Distancing, and it'll be really interesting. I think that their whole concept is that it's almost going to be used like a litmus test. Like, let's see if we can create some stories with people self-distancing and shot like they're self-distancing. I'm curious to see if it comes across as like a kind of like capitalizing it like gimmicky, or if it turns out to be a very interesting piece of storytelling?
Yeah, I don't know, because I think of these, what Saturday Night Live is doing, which is, it's lost sort of some zing because it isn't happening live in front of an audience, and it's everybody's at their own home doing their bits. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's very strange. And I heard that All Rise, the new show with the African American female judge,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
that I heard on NPR that they're going to attempt an episode that takes place during this COVID-19 pandemic, and that it's sort of addressed that that's it. But they're also gonna film all the actors, in their homes, but some of them will have green screens or something so they can make it look like they're in the law office, and it's just
Yeah.
sort of do it with it right up front that we have a trial going during this time. I mean, what is happening with trials and stuff like that? Like, everything stopped. So
Yeah.
weird,
Yeah.
So they're gonna attempt an episode done that way. So we'll see. We'll see if they come up with some. Necessity is the mother of invention. So we'll see what they come up with.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think Parks and Recreation is doing a special. I think
Yes.
and
It's where they do those a read, sort of, where they're all on screen and they're
no, well, no. From what I read, it's not like a table read. Like, they're actually filming the episode, and I think it takes place with everyone social distancing. So I from what I understand, like, it's like fully produced, but everyone literally was their own hand. And the creator was like, this is totally not the way that we can continue to make television. But what I also think is interesting, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was gonna say, no, you can't, because how do you interact? I mean, comedy really needs interaction.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing I think will be really interesting is I'm kind of wondering if this is going to be a bit of an equalizer in the place of, you've always had like folks who create web content and kind of do their thing, and then you had like broadcast television, and now everyone's basically recording on their iPhone. So, like, Whoopi Goldberg on The View is like no different than this person over here. So I think it'll be interesting to see if any like new voices or any new content like really catches on and finds its way to the top in a way that it never would have had the opportunity to do before. So it's fun. It's just also fascinating.
It is true. And I just, when you were saying that, I just thought of, remember all the movies and TV shows where they have done scenes where somebody's playing their own or another character, but it's the same actor, and they've been able to make it look on film like they're interacting with each. So I wonder if that sort of technology is going to be used, or
oh yeah, like when people on soaps play twins. Yeah.
Or like Lily Tomlin and Bette Midler in Big Business. They were playing two sets of twins.
Yeah.
So they were, and they had scenes where the four of them are fighting and stuff like that. It's done that they can actually make things look like people are interacting. It sounds like an awful lot of time probably to do it. But I don't know. I mean, if somebody comes up with that, or somebody comes up with way to make online thing look more, quote unquote, professionally done. You know what I mean? Like, like your film. Maybe this will upgrade technology. Maybe this will. We don't know. We have no idea where this is going to go.
Yeah. The only thing, and as great as technology is the only thing, I think you said it a little while ago, the only thing that makes it so that makes you nervous about that is the fact that the more technology takes over the process, the less actual people will be hired to be a part of that process.
Farmers, yeah.
It's
and crew and
exactly
the business is set up now. Think like crew, you have all the actors, you have the director, and you have the assistants to all those people, of the craft people. Hold on. Can you see me?
I can see
you? Okay, great.
But yeah, you're crafty, and you have
so many people have jobs based on the business the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at some kind of, I mean, hopefully it would just be something temporary until there is a vaccine and there is a cure. Knock on wood. Because once that's in place, then
all bets are off.
Yeah. But until then, which looks like it's not going to happen for a year, what do they do? And they want to go back into production. So you're right. It's going to be fascinating to see how they handle it.
Totally. I was talking to recently. I was having a conversation on this show with a friend of mine, Damon Seraphin, who's he's a director. He's a theater director, and he acts in theater. But his whole life is theater. And we were just kind of talking about live entertainment. Like, when do you think and how do you think live entertainment will come back? Like, do you think that the theater is just dead until there's a cure or a virus? Do you think? I mean, because how do you get a bunch of people into a small place and pay a lot of money to do it?
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. Movie theaters and live theaters. How long is it going to be before people feel safe to be in a dark room with a bunch of strangers? Because I don't know about you, but as soon as I heard a cough or a sneeze, I would not be focusing on what was on stage. I'd just be like, get me out of here. Get me out of here. So I don't know how long it's going to be before people feel safe doing it. I have a friend who was on the national tour of Anastasia, which of course was shut down. All the tours were shut down. But just spoke to her the other day, and she said they are planning right now to go back out. I think she said September, October. So.
Well, you can plan for anything. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, right?
Yeah. They've booked the city, booked the theaters, booked the cities, and plan to go out. So that's the earliest I've heard of anything, resuming.
Yeah. I feel most badly for the producers and because I think here in Vegas everything shut down. I was talking right when this was starting to happen. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who produces in New York and on the West End, and he was they were starting to kind of freak out. Again, this is before the world was like, oh, we have to shut down totally. But I just at least with film and television and broadcast content creators, they can find ways to repackage and resell and you can keep stretching dollars out of it. But it's like all of these shows, it's literally going to be starting from scratch, raising from the beginning. It's the more I think about it, the more daunting.
Oh, there have already been many reports of shows that are not coming back to Broadway once, whenever. They're already completely done and shut down. There were things that were in previews that will never open.
Yeah, you think about that poor person who was so excited to be about to make their Broadway debut, and nope, sorry. Yeah, I feel the only thing that's going to be Disney in Chicago on Broadway for a very long time.
Chicago ever die. Yeah, it really ruins a whole season. All these shows that would have been opening in time for the Tony Awards and stuff, but now don't even know if there'll be any Tony Awards.
Totally. It's so crazy. And that's one of the reasons why I'm hightailing it back to California, because I'm like, okay, well, the Vegas thing isn't going to happen for a little while. Because I mean, even here, they were talking. I'm sure you saw that interview with the mayor of Las Vegas. And
Uh,
I was thinking, like, aside from, the way she spun it, it's like, okay, there's 115,000, hotel rooms. It's like they need to be open. But it's like, just because, where are, here is the church, where are the people? Like no one's, gonna feel safe to fly anywhere for a long time. And even when they do, being out of work the way they are, no one's gonna have money to travel and, spend on. So it's a bit of a quagmire.
yeah, I don't know what. I was looking at her like she had 12 heads in that interview because it's all about tourists. It's all about people coming from all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing anybody wants right now is to be people from all over,
Yeah,
packed in
totally.
with them.
Hold on, I lost you.
It's crazy.
You there? I think I
Yes,
lost you again. Wait, you there?
yeah, I'm there.
Okay,
Good.
I can hear you now. I'm sorry. The
Okay. It's your mayor. It's that. It's
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. This is a really cool city though. Like I haven't been here for a very long time, but like the culture here, it's a very like California, it's a very unique culture, and it's this city that's proud that's very proud of itself and what it has to offer that makes it so unique. So it'll be really interesting to see the city kind of come back to life, but I definitely think it's going to take a lot longer than everyone, particularly that she thinks it will. I don't know.
yeah.
As far as the studios coming back, and production coming back, like again, I see like projects are still being optioned and bought, and things are still being sold. From your end, right, as someone who's probably typically always either doing tapings or going out on calls or going out to audition, like has your phone just gone like, or is it like, okay, we're working on this and
Oh
we've
yeah.
got,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had an on-camera right before leaving Las Vegas. So it was about leaving Las Vegas.
Oh.
Um, it was probably about, I guess, because I left on the 14th. So a friend, helped me and taped it for me, and we sent it off to my manager and stuff. And that was the last audition I've had. So May 13th. I mean, March 13th was the last time I had an audition. Now I am hearing about some people having auditions now going on. You have to self-tape them. Nobody's
Yeah.
having you in their office anymore. Um, but a couple people having auditions. One had one for Stranger shoots in Atlanta. So I don't know, what the show's plans are, but I think some of the shows are starting to hold auditions for upcoming episodes so that they're not like smashed up against the wall when it does come back. That they want to have things ready to go. Here we saw these 4 auditions. Here they are. Here are the tapes. Pick one.
Yeah.
Let's go. So I think they're holding some auditions, not very many, but some auditions for that purpose to get ahead of the curve when it does come back. They think they're going to probably be, going right back into production. So
Yeah.
shows that have already been on that aren't not new pilots, but shows that have already been on, and a lot of pilots were cast and shot right
Mm-hmm.
before the shutdown. So there will be new shows and that are going to go into production. So I think that's how it's being handled right now. If there are any auditions, it's just to get ahead of the game
Right.
later.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
There's nothing to work on right now. I mean, if I had an audition today, I know I would not be working next week.
Yeah. Well, speaking of working, seeing as how you literally have been on every television show and in every freaking film ever made, is there one that stands out as like your favorite? like oh my God, I remember it. And it could be because it was just a funny scene, or it could just be like the experience you had on set. Or Ronnie, do you have some? Is there one that you're like, oh my God, this will lead my this will be the biggest this will be the lead of my obituary in Variety.
Right. Uh,
Is that sad? That's how I think about my
thank God
life.
did not have COVID-19.
I literally, that's how I think about my life. I'm like, okay, so when they write my obituary, is this going to sound good? Or is it, it's horrible. It's very morbid, I know.
Well, it's funny because you know show business, and it's exactly what you say. Sometimes it's the experience of that was wonderful, and maybe the thing itself didn't turn out so great, or sometimes it's just a wonderful coming together of everything. With like recently on The Resident, I had a wonderful time. The director, the crew, the fellow actors, everybody on that. I had a lot of scenes with Bruce Greenwood, who's fantastic, and it was a very fulfilling role with both comedy and drama. And so it was that experience because of the actor experience for me, and then to see it too, it also turned out well. So to see that and to have such great interaction with the producers, the creators, the writers, everybody was just so great to me. So that will always be one of my favorite experiences, and that was very recent. But then there were things like, I had a small part on Will and Grace in the original season 7, playing Philip with an F, and it was just a fun bit. And to get to, when you do a sitcom, you're there all week,
Mm-hmm.
rehearsing and blocking and doing all that stuff. And just from the start, it was fun. My work was with Jeff Goldblum and Deborah Messing um, on the show. And so one time, when you're rehearsing, you're not, you only have that one scene or whatever. You're just, waiting around, and Jeff Goldblum wasn't on either. And then, so in this particular episode, there was also Patti LuPone, who, oh my God, she was fantastic. And so there was a set of a like a small cocktail bar, something with a grand piano. And so Jeff Goldblum and myself and Megan Mullally were like wandering around, and Jeff just sat down and started playing the piano. He can do everything. So he sat down and started playing the piano, and then Megan wandered over to him, and as a joke, she said, "Honey, play Misty for me." He played Misty, and then we sat. She and I stood there singing Misty with Jeff Goldblum on the piano. It was just like, it wasn't part of the show that anyone saw. It wasn't, it was part of the experience. Amazing. And then Patti LuPone, they introduced Patti LuPone, to the audience who screams, and then she came out and she said, "Oh, thank you so much." And then she said, "Would you all like to hear a song?" And she just sang a song a cappella for the audience. It was like, I'm watching Patti LuPone, Broadway star, who I've seen so many times on Broadway. I'm like, but just stand here and sing a song a cappella for the audience. This is amazing.
So my takeaway is, for the obituary, you and Jeff Goldblum opened for Patti LuPone.
Yes. I approve that message.
Oh my God. Is there, so what would, like, I mean, you've been doing this for so long, and you've done every format available and every genre available. Is there something that you haven't done that you like, that would just be like, oh my goodness, this would be the most amazing experience, or this would totally, this is something that I haven't done that just, wow.
Anything Star Trek.
Okay. You haven't done any of the Star Trek? You haven't done any of the Star?
I've been Trekkie my whole. Say that again.
No, I said you haven't done you haven't worked on any of the Star Trek, anything in the Star Trek universe
No.
franchise.
Yeah. I love it, and I love the new stuff they're doing, and I think it's an amazing thing that has lasted, so long and is so in the zeitgeist, that I would just love to be any part of any Star Trek series or movie or anything. Yeah, so awesome. Who was it? Some actress the other day said, if they got to do a Star Trek and a Star Wars, they would retire forever. They would be
It's
happy in their
like there's nowhere else to go after this.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
I love
To
it.
boldly go where no man has gone before.
I never got into Star. I've never been a big like sci-fi and fantasy fan anyways. Like I was never really drawn to that as a genre, whether it's books or not. But I never really got into it. And I'll talk with like Chris Garcia, who's probably like Trekkie #1, and he'll always make some kind
Yes.
of like remark, and I'm like, I have to like go and look it up. I'm like, are you making fun of me? Wait, hold on. It's so bad. It's so bad. What have you binged recently?
Even so, you're someone who's not a fan of it and has not watched it or anything, but you cannot live your life without knowing about it.
Totally. Oh, totally.
You know what I
Totally.
mean?
Totally. It's
It's one of those things that, yeah, go on.
Mm-hmm. No, I said totally. It's a I don't even know what it's bigger than an institution. Like it's literally a part of the fabric of the world.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's been. I mean, think about it. It's been since the mid '60s. So what a long-lasting, you know, uh, product
Mm-hmm.
series of products that one after the other, after the other, after the other. I mean, it just they all were fairly great hits. There and now with Picard and Star Trek Discovery on CBS All Access, they're also doing very well. And I have my roommate now is they call them star dates. She and her boyfriend sit and watch the Next Generation, like the Next Generation, which was where we met Picard, and because they want to watch Picard, the series, but they watch the whole original series before tuning into Picard. So it's just fun, and she'll be like, "Oh, I have a star date tonight at 7," and they watch it together, and then quiz each other afterwards on it.
I think that's wonderful. What do you feel? How do you feel about speaking of CBS All Access? So I think I'm not a cord cutter at all. I love my live television, so I still have cable. But I think I finally officially have every single streaming service there is to have.
Lord.
And I felt so happy and proud of myself. But now HBO Max is coming out, and then Peacock's coming out. Do you have a lot of streaming services? I find it so annoying.
I have several. I have Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Netflix. My boyfriend has CBS All Access, which we watch together. I think that's it. I mean, there's so many streaming things because I also still have cable, so you can stream a lot of things because your cable company gives you access.
Totally.
So you can have the app for Turner Classic Movies or NBC or HGTV or so I have all those things on streaming as well as live television. There's just so much.
There's just so much you can like. I just got a few weeks ago because I bought a new iPhone, so I just got the Apple TV Plus, and so I finished watching that new Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer. Reese Witherspoon is killing it, by the way. Did you see Little Fires Everywhere?
I did not. She is so smart, producing, starring. She's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, so she's in that new Apple show, and I'm like, oh my God, this is good. I want to see another season of this, but it's like, what? There's nothing else on this streaming service that I want. Like, it's annoying. It's so annoying. But yeah, Reese Witherspoon is killing it. That was really good. it was something when you said about her that what I also find is really interesting, and you can maybe speak to this because you've been working in television for so long, is how the line between what's a movie star and who's a television star has so evaporated. I find it really fascinating. I remember watching an interview with John Stamos, and he was a little butthurt about it because he's like, well, if I'm reading against Matt Damon, like, am I gonna get the role? Have you found? And maybe it doesn't matter because you work primarily like as a day player and as a recurring character. But have you noticed that shift, and have you felt any repercussions of that shift?
Oh, I noticed it a long time ago. I actually worked in casting for a while, also acting at the same time, but I worked in a major casting office, and we literally went from this, while I was there, we went from remember the show Chuck on NBC?
I do.
Well, we cast that show. And so remember the first couple years of that show, you always, the producers are like, can we get so-and-so for this? Or would you think so-and-so would do this part? And it's always these ridiculously famous names and, movie stars and, So, but you have to, as a casting person, you have to call their agents and ask their interest and their availability in doing it.
So, and once they stop laughing, then
in the first 2 years, they would literally just be like, no television, click. It'd be like these people, these movie stars, like that. And then around the 3rd year of that season, of that series, we started getting calls from the agents like, hey, so and so would really be interested in doing this show. Like, I think it coincided with, when Showtime and HBO and stuff got some movie stars.
Yeah.
Glenn Close and Kira Sedgwick and all these, they got all these movie stars to do shows, and they were getting, high acclaim and
awards and things.
Awards. Yeah. And I think that sort of started to change things for people. Plus, there was, there's just less work to be had, so they were sort of moving down the ladder, so to speak, stepping our heads of those who were coming up. But I saw that phenomenon, begin at that time. So after like the second year of Chuck, when suddenly movie star people were asking if they could be involved.
Yeah.
In TV shows. And then you got, once you got How to Get Away with Murder, and Viola Davis had, said she would do it, but she got it, a special contract where like only 13 episodes a season, and usually TV does 22. So here we are. Now we have power saying yes to it, and this is what was happening on streaming. They were doing 10 or 12 episodes in a season, and that's why all these stars they could pop in, do it
for a while, and not be,
you can still do a movie. If you're locked into a regular TV series,
you're stuck in a hit.
Yeah, you don't have enough time off to film something unless you're such a huge star that they're going to schedule it around you.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen. They have to schedule it when they can schedule it. So people wanted less time commitment and more money. The streaming companies pay the stars so much money.
Streaming companies pay everyone. Like, I'm still trying to figure out Netflix's like long-term business model, because even like from like a corporate standpoint. So I used to be the head of talent acquisition at E1, and I remember talking to a colleague and friend of mine at another studio who was like the head of HR, and they had someone leave as like a a smaller studio, and it was like and it was not like a high level title, but it was like maybe a director at the director level, and they came in to resign because they're like, we're going to Netflix, and they were ready to make a counter offer, and the person was like, you can't even try, because I think they gave her like a $50,000 pay increase or something like that. It'll be interesting to see, only because understanding the model, like just from my time working at HBO, like with subscription, you like with the cable model, you only have so many, and when you don't have ads, right, there's a finite number of subscribers, right, and eventually there's gonna be some attrition. So I'm so curious to see what happens to Netflix in the long run, because they spend so much money, and I don't think that they've ever actually turned a profit yet. I don't believe.
I think you're correct in that. I also wonder. I don't want to worry, but you always worry that something's gonna, go out of existence because of this. But they seem to. I mean, I don't know where they get it, but they just throw billions of dollars at stars, projects, and original films. And I mean, look, Bird Box with Sandra Bullock and one with Robert Redford, Jane Fonda. I mean, they're just getting the highest caliber of people doing these projects, and that the actors are interested because they're more interesting than what's being done on film. What's being for movies now.
Yeah.
As you know, movies have gone very much to the Marvel and the DC and the big,
the
great
big tentpoles, yeah,
which are notoriously not very much acting. Not very much, not fulfilling for the actors to do their craft.
Yeah.
And the films that the actors would love to do, or those important films, are few and far between, and they all go to Meryl Streep. So, but
who killed it, by the way, on the Sondheim. I don't know if you watched the Sondheim birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's to the ladies who punched.
I love it. Well, listen, we're basically at the end of our time together. I'm so glad that you were able to join us here on Hot 702.5 FM, where, I mean, aside from just probably turning on their television dial at any given day and coming across you, is there any place where folks, I don't know if you're active on like the Instagram or anything like that?
I am on Instagram under my name, Todd Sherry, and Facebook, Twitter
Awesome.
Twitter at Todd Sherry. Yeah.
Cool.
And I promise you, when you're sitting in your living room next week, you're going to see me on something.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank all of you for tuning in to another hour of our show. Martini Mondays is next, but be sure to follow us on @Showtime with Jordan. Talk to you later. Bye. Cool beans. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Indeed. Okay, so one final question for you.
Yeah.
A little extra for the podcast. What are you up to this weekend? What do you have planned?
Well, I'm probably going out to buy some wine. That's essential.
Indeed.
Yeah. I'm trying to step up, some sort of exercising. So try to walk around, different neighborhoods around LA, because we are allowed at least to do that. So I'll be doing some walking, some gardening, some TV watching,
and boozing.
Well, yeah.
Like that's understood.
Well, I mean, come on. Is everybody? I mean, you can't even go to AA meetings, so why not?
Right there you go. Oh my goodness, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, AA meetings. I'm sure they've been doing like virtual AA meetings or something. They have to have been doing.
Group.
Yeah.
They probably are. Yeah.
Yowzer. Well,
because this is an emotional, mess for all of us. just sort of staring at our own four walls and worrying about the world, is an emotional strain on the best of us. So if
Speaking
you
of
already,
the devil, I'm sorry, I have to decline this call. Chris Garcia is calling me.
oh my gosh, I said, don't bother me again. Beat me up, Scotty.
Exactly. Oh my god. I always wonder when you talk about like just the being in your own four walls and just kind of nerve wracking, made me kind of wonder. I mean, you know, like I don't feel like I did much. Like when I think about now, like, oh my god, I'm so bored. I really want to go. But I'm like, well, where would I go? Like there's like I don't feel like I necessarily left the house much more than I do now. So I don't think I've had that problem so
There's
much. If anything, it gives me an excuse to be a hermit because like can't, nope,
yeah.
social distancing. Yeah.
Well, actor friends of mine and I were talking about the fact that this is usually our life anyway, that we're sort of waiting in between auditions or jobs or whatever, so we're used to having downtime
Mm-hmm.
and filling it with things to do, even if we stay at home. So no, I don't really feel uh, crazed. I will say that just now and then, I think what gets to you is not the fact that you're not going out, but that you can't.
Right.
It's like somebody was shared something about I guess a bunch of people were at a beautiful tropical resort somewhere, and once they got locked down and couldn't leave, nobody saw it as paradise anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just the freedom has been taken away, to to assemble, to go see your friends. I mean, you don't want to harm anyone or infect anyone or get infected or whatever. Um, it's just that lack of choice, I guess, that's frustrating, as opposed to actually being at home. I have no problem. I mean, I told you I have a 5,000 square foot garden and it's paradise, so I'm I'm fine.
What all do you grow in your garden? Like, do you grow vegetables and things like that, or do you just grow?
Oh my gosh, I do. I have, let's see, I have grapefruits, lemons, limes, pomegranates, mandarin oranges, tangelos, figs, and loquats. Those are
So
all
so
fruit
all the
trees.
mixers, all the drink mixers. You
All,
just...
oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's just have a great have absolutely. Um, and then you know this time I've got dragon fruit. I plant Swiss chard and sometimes pumpkins and things like that. We'll see. We'll see what foods I grow this year. I feel like I have to grow foods this year because I
Right?
might not be able to. You know. Oh, I have
Your side
Asian
hustle, sell it to your neighbors. Yeah.
cat. Well, what's funny? They're saying they're showing commercials now to say grow your own victory garden, which was a thing in the like during World War II. They called them victory gardens, that everybody in the neighborhood would garden, and I would grow tomatoes and peppers, and you would grow sweet potatoes and corn,
Mm-hmm.
and they would grow, and then everybody would share in the harvest. But it was this sort of thing. Things are, we need everybody to step up and do something, and it's funny because I always knew that term victory garden, and now they're throwing it around again, like who quarantine
Every
is will plant. Oh,
everything old is new again.
yeah.
Oh my God. Well, it's been really great to finally meet you and getting acquainted with you. I think you're hilarious. and and I hope that someday soon I'll have the opportunity to meet you face to face in a small room filled with lots of people.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yes, and tell Chris I said hi when you come.
I certainly shall. And thank you all for checking out the Showtime at Jordan Van Hassel podcast. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.